Hey there, welcome back. This is Pixelazy. I'm just getting ready to fly out of the Providenia Bay to Ugolny, Russia. It's been a few days since I've flown, but the weather has not improved locally or at my current location. If you haven't watched one of my videos before, I am playing Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and inside of that simulation I am tackling a trip around the world in a Cessna 172. It's a slow, winding, long flight. This is leg number 15, so far spanning about 3 weeks.
Lazy Lima 114 continue. For west departure, I will contact you next when you leave my airspace.
Tower Lazy Lima 114 continue for west departure.
My call sign is Lazy.
500.
My plane's name is Pixel. My website is pixelazy.ca, Pixelazy.ca, and I've been logging my flights there as best as I can. Sometimes it takes me a few days to get the details up, but I get there eventually.
Stall.
And we're just climbing out of this tiny little Siberian airport. We're going to go over this mountain. And then I think we're going to try and cruise along the coast to Ugolny, Russia, which is a little further inland, a couple hours to the east, or to the west, I guess. Got my directions mixed up. And it looks like it's a cloudy, foggy, misty day here in northern Russia. But I'll just get moving and I'll check in a little bit more when I get a little bit further along the way. I've noticed an interesting thing as I'm flying along here, and it's hard to show in the systems I have open at the moment. But at some point in this flight, there it goes, I think I'll be flying over the international dateline. So there's a little bit of a glitch in the flight plan computer where I'm guessing the international dateline is. You can see kind of zips out there and then immediately wants me to go around the rest of the world to get to my destination, which is about here on the map. So obviously I'm not going to do that. So I'm curious to see what happens to the flight plan when I cross over the international dateline, if it flips over and follows me into a new time zone, or if I'm stuck without a flight plan 3/4 of the way into my flight. Just flying along the Siberian coastline. Not what I imagined, though. While I was here, I did do a leisurely flight around the bay where my last stop was. So I've been here for almost a week. It's been a week since I've recorded another leg in my trip. And while I was here, I just for fun turned the weather up to winter and put like a foot of snow on the ground, and that definitely had a more Siberian feel to it. But it is middle of September, even in northern Russia, and I looked up on Wikipedia, and they have they have regular seasons. They're just not very long, and I guess it wouldn't be fully covered in snow in September. And this is live weather, so it's a cloudy, cool day in Siberia, and we're just going to cruise up along the coast. The flight plan wants to go right across this bay, off to the side here. But I think I might follow the coast for a while because it sort of forms a rough triangle shape. It leads up, and I might do a little longer trip just so I get something to look at. Zoom down on some of these little coastal towns here. See what this looks like, a collection of buildings and maybe a road or a river. And have a look. This is why we're here. This is why, in this time of pandemic when we can't get out and actually see the world, we're going to try and see it virtually. Even though it's not 100% representation, it'll give me a little bit of a travel fix. So we're about an hour and a half into this flight, and after following the coast for a while and it getting really cloudy and murky, lots of thick fog, I kind of gave up and just darted across the big body of water that was kind of behind me there. And from what I could tell from Google Maps, it's the Bering Sea. But we're about 40 miles out of our destination today, and you can see from the map in the Garmin flight tracking computer, we've crossed the international date line, because I think that's a little bit of a simulator glitch where the line was supposed to go right across the ocean here, and instead kind of did a U-turn and went back and then came all the way around the world and said I'm supposed to go and turn around. But luckily it still knows that I've really got less than 40 miles to go. So the weather has improved a little bit. We are kind of scooching up along the coast here, still over Siberia. And gonna go look for this Ugolny, I think it's called. I looked up again on the Google Maps, and there's Russian pronunciations, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'll be interested to do a little digging around and scooching along the coast here, and it looks like some bit of a low lakeland sort of area we're going to fly over. Maybe some low mountains. We'll see what we see. So we're about 5 or 6 minutes out of our destination here, and just over that mountain ridge is Ugolny Airport. And now that we're kind of exploring the world outside of my domain of knowledge, I thought I'd do a little bit more online research of some of these locations I'm visiting. And Wikipedia says that Ugolny Airport is a mixed-use military and civil airfield in the Russian Far East, located 11 kilometers east of Anadar, separated from the town by the waters of the Anadyrsky Liman. And this seems to be a Cold War air base that was constructed during the 1950s as a staging area for bombers. It's an airport that has a little bit of history, not much, but it's been featured in a novel. There was apparently a viral video that went earlier this year about somebody who landed here without documentation. And it sounds like we get about 100,000 people pass through this airport every year, which, for being really, I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere, but up in the far north reaches of Siberia, it's pretty impressive. I'm just going to scooch over these mountains and wait for my clearance to land. The airport, the runways are running essentially perpendicular to the direction I'm flying right now, so I'm going to have to kind of scooch down, and there's that ridge that you can kind of see on the right hand side of the screen. That's probably more in line with the airport. And I'm going to have to do an approach, and hopefully I get a northbound approach, which would be me turning right and making a direct landing straight up from near this water that you can see ahead. And if not, I'm going to have to do a loop past and approach from the other direction. So I'm looking for, I guess, an approach on probably a runway, say 35, 36, or 1, 2, or 3. I'm not sure. Definitely not something in the high teens. How about that? I'll check in another couple minutes. This flight has taken about 2 hours again today, a little over 200 nautical miles. And the airport has actually showed up on my screen there. I was a little off in my analysis of where I thought it would be. It's actually closer to the coast than I thought it would be. So I'm gonna wait and see if I hear anything for clearance. As you can see, my flight path is still deeply confused. I need to lose a lot of altitude here pretty quickly. Draw my engines significantly. What I read is that you're looking for about something in the 500s for your vertical speed, negative 500s as you descend. Anything over that is a little bit too fast. Anything under that, you're not really dropping a significant amount. Trying to keep that in the 500s. That's that little dial on the very far right side. I'm going to drop a little quicker than I need to. Of course, that gives me a little bit more acceleration, which makes it harder to fight against the lift that I get out of that. And if I don't get any clearance, I'm just going to land northbound, which would be a right-hand turn and approach. Probably in the next minute or two here. Just as I pass this little river, I'm going to make a hard right turn and line myself up for my final approach. Looks like a fairly substantial airport, definitely bigger than the...
Anadir Tower, Lazy Lima 114 is 3 miles south with Mike to land.
Lazy Lima 114 Anadir Tower. Fly straight in runway 1. Altimeter 29.65, wind tree 44 at 11. Lazy Lima 114 cleared to land runway 1. Follow the Cessna Skyhawk on final. Wind tree 44 at 11.
That's perfect. We have clearance to land on
runway 1, Lazy Lima 114.
runway 1, which is where we're approaching. I think I've mentioned this in a previous video, but I'm not a pilot, but I did work at an airport for a summer way back over 20 years ago now, and I was mowing the grass, so I had to learn the some basics, and the runways are usually named based on the direction. So you drop the last digit of your compass. So right now I'm basically at 10 degrees to drop to 0, which leaves you with a 1. So this is runway 1. drop all my engine power and do a bit of a dead stick here.
Lazy Lima 114, did you copy?
Yep, I heard you. I'm still landing. Keep that nose up a little bit. Hopefully touchdown nice and soft.
Lazy Lima 114, did you copy?
There we go. Welcome to Yogolny, Russia. And we'll just taxi out of here.
Lazy Lima 114, contact ground on 118.8.
And go park over by the other airplanes.
118.8 Lazy Lima 114.
Thanks for watching. Maybe we'll see you again. If not, then there you go.
Venadir ground, Lazy Lima 114, request taxi to parking.
Lazy Lima 114, taxi to
Hey there, I'm back. It's been a day or so since I landed in Yogolny, and I looked at my footage and it wasn't terribly exciting. I know probably a lot of you are looking for me to have some more exciting footage of the places I visit, and northern Russia and Siberia in the fall are not exactly picturesque hotspots. I hope this doesn't get me on a Russian watch list or something. I'm sure if you're really there, it's a beautiful country, but you know, in Flight Simulator, it's a lot of mountains and landscapes, and it's interesting. It's interesting in itself, but it's not like flying over familiar cities or famous landmarks. It's a lot of Arctic wasteland in the fall, so not even snow, I guess, which is a little disappointing, but it is what it is. So instead, I think I'm going to run a few legs together as I traverse.
Lazy Lima 115, continue for west departure. I will contact you next when you leave my airspace.
As I traverse over
Venadir Tower,
northern
Lazy
Russia.
Lima 115, continue for west departure.
And yeah, if I see anything interesting, I will try and record it and capture it. But, you know, as I fly over, you know, this little northern Russian town, Adnir, I think it's called, by the Yogolny airport, you know, it's kind of cool to look at. But I don't know how many of my viewers would be familiar with the architecture or landscape of this area. So instead I'm going to do a few long leaps over northern Russia and try and get down in the next few days, the next week or so maybe, into Japan and see what there is to see there.
Lazy
You can
Lima
see my
115, you are leaving my airspace frequency change.
kind of off my flight path here right away, but I'm going to get back on that pink line and
Venadir Tower, Lazy Lima 115, frequency change.
head over to central Siberia so I can kind of do a big
Venadir
traversal of the
approach, Lazy
continent.
Lima 115 is type Cessna Skyhawk, 3 miles west of Venadir, 1,500 feet. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Check
Lazy
in later.
Lima 115, Venadir approach.
Of course, as soon as I said that, I found a wind farm just outside of the airport that I just took off of. It's the first wind farm I've seen, so sure I'll see a lot more of those when I hit Europe, or I'm not sure where else, but that's pretty cool. I'm about half an hour into my flight, just making my way across sort of the middle of Siberia. I don't think I mentioned where I was headed, actually. I took off from Ugolny Airport in northern Russia, and I'm just kind of headed inland towards a town or an airport called Markovo. Don't know much about it. There wasn't much online about it. Obviously, I think the landscape is kind of a giveaway here. Not only has it been this sort of barren, rolling tundra for the last half hour with some lakes and rivers. I guess this is all connected to the ocean, so I'm not sure if this is saltwater or freshwater, but you look at sort of the jagged appearance of the river, and this is so out of the way that even the simulator doesn't have much data here other than some low resolution photography to go off of. So it really gives you an impression of just how remote this is. And there's a bit of a winding river with some bodies of water along the way here. And I'm going to follow that for a while. We'll see how far I can get. As I've started traversing along this river, or this waterway, whatever it is, I'm not sure if that's an error of the system or what that is, but it seems like the coasts are displaying this weird sort of white pattern, which sort of looks like ice, but it could be something else. Quite likely some snow. It's probably an area of the world that has snow for the majority of the year, so getting aerial satellite photography when there's no snow on the ground might be a difficult possibility. But either way, it looks kind of cool. Some interesting weaving patterns that sort of show what the texture of the landscape is up here in Siberia. I've been flying for well over an hour now. Somewhere about, I think, I want to say like, what is it, 70, yeah, just over 70 miles away from Markovo, which is our destination. I've been looking on Google Maps, and there's some interesting stuff. Obviously, I can't read Russian on the maps, but some of this landscape is interesting. And as we get closer to the airport that we're going to, I'm kind of taking a bit of a detour. You can see on my GPS map there, on the one on the right, I'm just kind of veering off course a little bit. My intention there is to head up a little north of Markovo and take a little bit of a detour, because there's apparently some sort of natural preserve, and it looks like it's probably, 50 miles by 50 miles, so I'm not going to be able to view the whole thing, but it's this mosaic of lakes and waterways, and when I clicked on it, there was all these tremendous pictures of people going up there and taking pictures of birds in the lakes and things. So I'm kind of interested just to clip the corner of that and see what there is to see as I fly near it. We'll have a look when we get closer. So we're about 30 miles from our destination airport, Markovo, Russia, and I've scooched up and I'm just sort of skirting along the edge of this collection of lakes you can see in the GPS map there in the corner. It's quite an interesting sort of pattern of water and it's, according to Google Maps, it's a natural preserve of some kind. So like almost, I guess, sort of like a national park, or I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up a little bit more. But now I'm going to kind of go along the edge of this because it extends down, and then there's a little break, and then we're into Markovo, which is also kind of part of this. This river kind of runs by it. Just up about halfway to that hill you can see in the distance, I think. There's not many landmarks, and definitely none that I really am familiar with, so I'm kind of winging it through here, but yeah, this is some sort of nature preserve up in central northern Russia. I keep saying Siberia, and I'm just assuming we're still in Siberia because that's my impression of northern Russia is all Siberia, but yeah, somewhere up in the northeast part of Russia. We're about 10 miles outside of Markovo Airport, which is our destination for today. This is a really interesting sort of weaving river we're just passing over, and it leads into, I think it's a town, and the town is right beside the airport. So yeah, almost exactly 10 miles out of town. The airport sort of runs east to west as far as I can tell. So ideally we're looking for a runway 27-ish. Otherwise we're going to have to swoop around and take a different approach. So this has been I'm going to turn this into a multi-part video, multi-leg video. So this will be the 2 legs. It'll probably be a pretty long video because I think I've recorded about 15 to 20 minutes of footage on each leg, even though most of it's just been flying over water and Russian tundra and Siberian rivers. It's cool to see. It's not fantastically rendered cities and famous landmarks, but this is all part of this vast world, and I think I had one takeaway from even my short time in Russia so far, and I think I'm only about a quarter or third of the way through Russia right now. Even the little stretch I'm going to do just to get down to Japan, Korea area down there. It's just how big this is. I mean, I did a video right at the start where I flew from my home in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, out to the mountains in Jasper, and that was a 2-hour flight, and that was, whoa, this is a long way, and I drove it, and it took 4 to 5 hours to drive it, and this video alone has probably been 4.5 to 5 hours worth of flying, and it's just been this incredibly long stretch of vast open spaces. I think the landscape has been tremendously varied, from rivers, mountains, tundra, rolling hills, sharp mountains, lakes, all sorts of things. But it's huge. It's just huge. Can't even, unless you've sat here for 5 hours and watched it slowly go by in this simulation, and I'm not sitting here staring at the screen. I'm listening to podcasts or having YouTube or Netflix on another screen sort of occupy my time as I kind of nudge the airplane along. But still, this is a massive place, and it's consumed a massive amount of time to get here. While I've been flying on this this leg that I'm on now, I actually saw an achievement pop up on the screen that I've logged 50 hours. That's the first time achievement in Microsoft Flight Simulator. 50 hours worth of flight time. So about 4.5 miles out. But yeah, 50 hours. And probably about, there we go, probably about 40 of that, 35 of that has been on this particular journey. You know, of course I've goofed around a little bit. There was a release of some shareware, I think you call them shareware, open source, freeware airplanes that were released. There's some interesting real life airplanes, but there's also a science fiction pack of airplanes, so I of course downloaded the TIE Fighter and the Millennium Falcon and the DeLorean, and I made I spent a good 2 days flying around my city doing trench runs down the street where I normally commute to work in a TIE Fighter, which was quite funny. You know, and we sat here with my daughter and sort of, yeah, it was not exactly a pure simulation, obviously, but you know, it was fun. But now I'm back in the simulation, and having gone out to see this whole world and this adventure that I'm on, it's been an interesting experience. And I don't know if I'm going to get clearance to land on this runway, because it looks like it's a little bush airport.
Uniform Hotel Mike Oscar, traffic Lazy Lima 1152 miles east, 400 feet inbound to land, runway 27.
Runway 27. That's where I am. Runway 27. It's not exactly marked. Basically gone dead stick right now. Might give myself a little bit of throttle. Drop that down to nothing. A little bit of gas right at the end. Just about to touch down in Markovo, somewhere in the middle of Russia. And that's the end of the 16th leg of this trip around the world. Hope you've enjoyed watching so far. Leave a comment if you've got somewhere in Russia you think I should go visit, as opposed to just kind of hop, skipping, and jumping around, even though I don't know where I'm going. But I am headed down to Japan shortly, and see what I see. Welcome to Markovo. Thanks for watching.